Thanks for watching Lessons in Minutes with Jaylee. Like, share, and don't forget to subscribe.
Let's continue to look at accounting for overheads, specifically service department cost allocation. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to allocate overhead costs using repeated distribution method. Now, in previous lessons, we have looked at direct allocation and the step-down method. Allocation. If you have missed those lessons, the links are in the description below. Now, what is the repeated distribution method? This method allows service departments to be opened to receive costs from other service departments. So basically, what you'll be doing is allocating costs from one service department to another service department. That is possible with this method. It employs the step-down method in deciding the department's allocation process. So basically, you're going to be using the departments with the highest percentage of its total services to other departments in order of allocation until the amount is minimal. Now, when you get to that minimal amount, you're then going to use the direct allocation method to allocate all of that cost only to the production departments. So what I'm saying is that you'll be using aspects of the step-down method as well as aspects of the direct allocation method in order to carry out the repeated distribution method. Let us look at the question. JB Company has 2 service departments and 2 production departments. The following information is provided in the table below. So the first thing that you'll have to do is to look at the service departments. We have 2 service departments, human resource and maintenance. You're going to look at the percentage that each is providing to each department, each service department, right? Now, the human resource department is providing 20% of service to the maintenance department, while we can see that the maintenance department is providing 10% of service to the human resource department. Now, in using the step-down method, we'll have to start our allocation with the human resource because that department is providing 20%, which is a higher percentage when compared to the maintenance department, which is providing 10% to the human resource department. So let us move into looking at carry out the steps in doing the repeated distribution method. So we're going to start by allocating, as indicated earlier, the human resource department. So allocation of human resource. Now from the question, before we get to that, let's put in the amount that we are allocating, which is $50,000. And from the question, the human resource is providing 20% of service to the maintenance department, meaning 20% of that 50,000. 50,000 multiplied by 20% give us $10,000. For the assembly, it is providing 50% of that 50,000, which is $25,000. And for the finishing department, the human resource is providing 30% of service to the finishing department, and that would give us $15,000. So in order to complete that step, we are going to recalculate the cost. So recalculated cost. 50,000 from 50 leave us with 0. That's for the human resource. The maintenance is now 130,000, which is the 120,000 plus the 10,000. The assembly is that 300,000 plus 25,000, which is $325,000, and the finishing 250 plus 15,000 give us $265,000. So the first step is completed. let's move into the second step, and we're going to do the allocation of the maintenance department. Now, the maintenance has a cost of 130,000 in it. All of that will be allocated among the three departments: the human resource, the assembly, and the finishing. We are doing the repeated distribution. So you're going to find that the cost, when you move on to another step, the cost from one service department will be allocated to another service department until the value is minimal. Now, from the question, the maintenance department is providing 10% of service to the human resource. So 10% of that 130,000 give us $13,000. Moving over to the assembly department, from the question, maintenance is providing 60% to the assembly department. So that is 60% of that 130,000, and that gives us $78,000. Back to the question, we're looking at the percentage that the maintenance department is supplying to the finishing department, and that is 30%. 30% of the 130,000, that is what you're sharing, would give us $39,000. And to complete this step, basically step 2, we need to do our recalculated cost. And for the human resource, the previous cost was $0. We're going to add this 13,000 to that. So the value is 13,000. Maintenance, we have allocated all of that, so that is 0. The assembly was 325,000. We're now adding 78,000 to that, and that gives us a value of $403,000. Now for the finishing, 265,000 plus 39,000 give us $304,000. So now these are the new overhead costs that are in the business for each department. Now, remember, we're doing repeated distribution, and we need to continue allocating until the value in our respective service department is minimal. So we're now going to allocate the human resource, allocation of human resource. All right. Now the human resource is 13,000. So that is 13,000 that we are sharing. Maintenance, back to the question, maintenance is to get 20% of that 13,000. So that would give us 2,600. Assembly, back to the question again, is to get 50% of the human resource. That is 50% of that 13,000, which gives us 6,500. While the finishing department is to get 30% of this 13,000. So that gives us 3,900. Now we need to recalculate the cost, so recalculated cost. For the human resource, we have allocated all of that. So we're left with $0. The maintenance, it was 0 before. This step, we're adding 2,600 to it. That is 2,600. In that, the assembly was 403,000. We are adding 6,500. So that gives us a total of $409,500. While for the finishing department, the previous recalculated cost is 304,000. We are now adding 3,900 to that. So that gives us $307,900. Now remember, you need to continue the allocation as we're doing the repeated distribution. So you're distributing until a service cost is minimal. Okay? Oftentimes a question will tell you the value, when you get to a particular range, then you can stop. Or it may say to do 2 steps or 3 steps. So let us continue our distribution. Say, for example, this 2,600 that is now in the maintenance department is not so minimal. So we're going to continue to distribute. So we're going to go allocation of maintenance, because that is the department that has overhead costs in it. So we're going to reduce this by 2,600. That's the maintenance department by 2,600. Now we're going back to the question to know the percentage value that must be allocated to each department. From the question, maintenance offers 10% to the human resource, so 10% of that 2,600 give us $260. For the assembly, it is 60%. So 60% of 2,600, and that gives us $1,560. While for the finishing, it is 30%. 30% of 2,600. That is what we're sharing. And that gives us a value of $780. Now that we are at this stage, we now need to do the recalculated cost. For the human resource department, there was $0 in the previous step when we had recalculated. Now it is 260. So our total there is 260. The maintenance, we have distributed all of that, so that is $0. For the assembly department, it was 409,500. We're now adding $1,560 to that. That gives us a value of $411,060. The finishing department, the previous recalculated cost was $307,900. Now we're adding $780 to that value. So that now gives us $308,680. And guess what? What we have now in terms of service department costs, we're seeing that the human resource has a value of $260. Now we can consider this value to be minimal. So because the value is minimal, we're now going to allocate all of that $260, but to what? To which departments? Only to the production department. So here we will be using the direct allocation method to complete this final stage. So allocation of human resource, that's the department that we are allocating now, and we are going to distribute all of that $260. So make a note of that, that it will decrease by that. The maintenance department should not get any because the value is minimal. We're closing out. But in terms of this 260 that must be shared between the two production departments, between the assembly department and the finishing department, we have to go over to our question, go to the question, and we have to reassemble the portion that is to be shared. Now, we are sharing the human resource, and we have to reallocate. We have to reassemble the portion, what we are going to share. We're sharing 50% to assembly and 30% to finishing. Because we have a total of 80, it will be 50 out of 80 for the assembly and 30 out of 80 for the finishing. So in your calculations, you'll find that it is 50 out of 80 for the human resource, and that gives us human resource that we are allocating to the assembly department, and that gives us a value of $162.50. And we're going to keep that 50 cents. For the finishing, it is 30 out of 80 multiplied by that 260, and that gives us a value of $97.50. Again, we're going to keep that 50 cents. And the final thing, yes, we are there. We're at the very last thing, and that is to do your recalculated cost for the human resource. For human resource, we have shared all of that, so that is 0. There is nothing for the maintenance. For the assembly department, the previous recalculated cost was $411,060. To that, we're going to add $162.50, and that now gives us a total of $411,222.50. And for the last department, which is the finishing, the previous recalculated cost was $308,680. To that, we're going to add $97.50. And that gives us a total of $308,777.50. And if it is that you want to double check if you're correct, if you go back to the question and add all of the overheads together, the 50,000 plus the 120 plus the 300 plus the 250,000, you would get 720,000. If you add the values that we have in the table for the recalculated cost for the 2 production departments, assembly, add this $411,222.50 to $308,777.50. You should get back that $720,000. So remember, for the repeated distribution, you are going to continue distributing the cost, the service cost, until the value is minimal. But in terms of knowing which department you're to start with, you're going to use the step-down method to determine which service department is offering the highest percentage to other departments, and then you'll start allocating that. The next step is that you'll pick up the next service department that has the next highest value, and you'll continue. I stressed on that because there are cases where you'll get more than 2 service departments, so you have to compare. No, once you continue distributing until the value is minimal, like for example, in this case, where the $260, because it is considered to be minimal, then you're going to use the direct allocation method and allocate this value only to the production departments. So in order to do that, remember, you have to reassemble the portions. Assembling was 50%, while finishing is 30%. So the total then is 80. So assembly is to get 50 out of that 80 multiplied by the 260, while finishing is 30 out of that 80 multiplied by that 260. And then the final thing for you to do is to recalculate your cost. All right. Again, remember, you can double check by adding the total values that you have in the production department. And I say production department because once you're finished, there wouldn't be any cost left in the service departments. All right. You should get 720,000. This 720 is what you had started out with. 50 was in the human resource, 120 in maintenance, 300,000 in assembly, and finishing was 250,000. Now, one more thing I want to point out before I close this session is that apart from working with the figure, the amount being minimal, right? There may be a case where you're asked to limit the repeated distribution method to 2 steps. Now, how would you determine the steps? Let us look at that. So the first step would be where you had allocated the human resource department cost, and then you recalculate. So that would be your first step. The next step would then be the allocation of the maintenance. So now we're into step 2. And then you recalculate. You would not complete that step unless you recalculate the value. And then once you get to that stage where you have completed the second step, you would then be eliminating all of this, right? And then here would have been your next step. So right here now, you would do allocation of human resource, but instead of the 260, what you would be sharing would be this $13,000, if it is that they say to limit it to 2 steps, 3 steps, etc. Or they may just tell you the value, the range in which would basically be seen as where the value is minimal. So that takes us to the end of this session where we had looked at using the repeated distribution method to allocate service departments costs.
Like, share, and don't forget to subscribe.